Hey everyone, this is Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince from Mustang Prince Orro Reports. And I think it's time for a new countdown video. And this one requires a little backstory. For those who follow me on my show, back in September 2015, I did a countdown list of the top 13 bad films that I like, where I defended the many different movies that were panned by the public. From the heartwarming Swan Princess, A Royal Family Tale, to the hilarious and wacky Tom and Jerry movie. Also, so far my video has been doing pretty well, with over 300 viewers and 5 thumbs up already. And like I said in my video, audiences all over the world have their own tastes when it comes to different movies. And of course, not all films are perfect to everybody. Heck, there are even movies out there that can make audiences cringe or puke whenever we watch them. As for me, there are lots of movies that I had to put up with, from films that can be poorly made, boring, pointless, annoying, or downright raunchy and disgusting. But for today's video, I'm going to be talking about 13 films that infuriate me, and maybe, just maybe, might infuriate you. Now, normally when I make these videos, I mostly want to avoid the negative and go towards the positive. But because this video is sponsored by a text request, I have no choice. Thanks a lot, Daniel. Lastly, if you guys disagree with my picks, then it's perfectly fine. We all have our own tastes of what we hate or not. Anyway, grab a bottle of water and some headache medicine, for this is the top 13 films that I hate. Now, would you believe me if I told you that a movie about the 5% brain myth will be featured here? Well, for those who don't know about this movie, the plot centers around a 24-year-old woman named Lucy who gets tricked into working as a drug mule by an insane drug lord, and after the CPH4 is kicked in her abdomen, she begins, acquiring increasingly enhanced physical and mental brain capacities, such as telepathy, telekinesis, mental time travel, and the ability not to feel pain or any discomforts. Now, the reason why I don't like this movie is because several parts of the movie give me the creeps, like camera shots inside the brain and the rest of the body, severe violence, and above all, a rushed story. But the reason why it's on the bottom of the list is because of a few good things, like interesting camera shots like time lapses and footage that look like they came from different animal documentaries. Plus, I do like Scarlett Johansson's acting as Lucy. In the beginning of the movie, she seems very innocent and nice, but after she gets diagnosed, she becomes more ruthless and emotionless. Also, her brain powers are pretty cool, kind of similar to Carrie White from the Stephen King story, and Sabrina from Pokemon. Plus, Morgan Freeman's character, Professor Norman, despite not having a lot of interaction with our title character, is pretty interesting when he explains to his class about the science of the brain. Plus, another reason why I don't like this movie is the villain, Mr. Jang. Not only because I can't understand his language, but he seems very mentally insane. With a film such as Lucy, makes me pray that I didn't lose any brain cells. I knew I had to come to this sooner or later. Now, in my opinion, this movie was, well, not really a good start for Blue Sky Studios. Plus, I don't understand why it had to be followed by 4 theatrical sequels. And I admit, 2 and 3 were alright, while 4 and 5 were dumb. But back onto the first movie. One of my issues with this movie is that the story is so cliched. The plot is about 3 prehistoric animals on a journey to bring a human baby back to its tribe. Yeah, like I haven't seen that before. Plus, the jokes in this movie never gave me any chuckles. They can be either annoying, disgusting, or cringeworthy. Another problem is the characters. Firstly, there's Manny. I don't know why, but this character is so grumpy throughout most of the movie that he makes Shrek and Grumpy from Snow White more likable. Sid the Sloth has got to be the most annoying sidekick in any animated film, and Diego may be a badass saber-toothed tiger, but throughout this movie, he's a deceiver, pretending to help Manny and Sid when he's actually supposed to deliver the human baby to his pack. And while the baby can grow on me at times, his crying, provided by Tara Strong, is really ear-piercing. Also, there are scenes with Scrat that are very useless in this movie. I mean, seriously, this rodent doesn't do anything to progress the plot, and he doesn't even interact with any of the characters. But, like Lucy, there are some good moments in this movie. For example, the animation was very nice for the time. Plus, the cave drawing sequence, which showed what happened to Manny's wife and child, was actually very sad. Plus, there are some thrilling things like lava and ice slides. Despite some good things, Ice Age is a film where Blue Sky started out cold. Now, this movie is so far the most recent bad movie that I blogged on my show, and I'm still upset that Paramount Pictures put a false copyright claim on my blog for using footage from the movie, which I didn't do. Let me remind you guys that I only use photographs, not video footage, from the films that I blog for my videos. Anyway, while the acting and direction is good in this movie, as well as the rain effects, the story has some hiccups in this movie. For example, when were there ever any rock giants called Watchers in the Bible? Okay, I understand that they're supposed to represent fallen angels, and they do look cool, and while I'm glad that they do help Noah and his family build their ark, I wish that Noah and, well, his sons could have at least helped a bit. Also, in my opinion, when the ark is completed, it looks really plain looking, compared to most Noah's Ark adaptations. But what's even worse is how Noah is starting halfway throughout the movie. You see, when he goes to a nearby settlement to find wives for Ham and Japheth, he abandons his efforts and begins to believe that God wants all of humanity dead. Plus, as soon as Isla, played by Emma Watson, gives birth to two twin girls, Noah attempts to kill them. And seriously, Noah would never do something like that in the Bible. Also, the villain, Tubal-Cain, is very brutal, which is, well, how most folks were before the Great Flood, but mostly he gets really boring and uninteresting at times. Heck, he even eats some of the animals that are on board the ark. Also, I've heard that this movie generated a bit of controversy and was banned in several Muslim countries because it was seen as contradicting the teachings of Islam. Noah, a film where God should send his wrath upon. Now, unlike Blue Sky with the Ice Age films, DreamWorks has had some ups and downs at times. So far, I've been hearing folks say that they don't like certain films like Shark Tale, Over the Hedge, B-Movie, Shrek the Third, or Home. But, in my eyes, their first worst movie is this one. Okay, in all honesty, nowadays, it's not as bad as the two DreamWorks films from last year. But anyway, way back in 2012, when I saw the trailer, which preceded Madagascar 3, I felt very skeptical and reluctant. And after renting The Croods from Netflix, I realized that my instincts were right. You see, the story is like a mix of The Land Before Time with just a dash of the Flintstones. Also, while I do like prehistoric movies, I'm not the biggest fan of Stone Age people at times. Even though Early Man was a little bit better due to its soccer theme. Also, the Father Grub Crude, voiced by Nicolas Cage, makes me cringe the most while watching this due to his over-the-top protective and paranoid behavior. Plus, he's old school and he doesn't trust Guy, a hardcore teenage cave boy with a sloth wrapped around his waist who's trying to help the family find a new home before an impending apocalypse alters the entire world. Also, I understand the film was supposed to be an adaptation of Roald Dahl's The Twits. Now, imagine how the Croods would have been if they had gone that route. On the positive side, voice actors like Emma Stone and Ryan Reynolds are absolutely amazing. And the landscapes are very breathtaking. Plus, the creatures in this movie are almost reminiscent to the creatures shown in Avatar: The Last Airbender. However, on the other hand, if this movie is supposed to take place in Earth's past, then why make up all these outrageous creatures instead of using real ones found in the fossil record? Also, the film feels like a far post-apocalyptic future, kind of like Teenage Cavemen. I know it's not what the filmmakers had in mind, but it's really weird when you think about it. Also, most of the comedy in this movie wasn't really that funny. What's more, the Croods got a Netflix TV series called Dawn of the Croods. And while I do wish it was still canceled nowadays, I've heard news that a sequel will be released in 2020. The Croods, a DreamWorks movie that should definitely go extinct. Now, remember several years ago when I said that 8 Crazy Nights was the worst Hanukkah movie I've ever seen? Well, here's where I talk about the worst Christmas movie I've ever seen. Now, I don't understand why many people like this movie so much, or why my parents bought this film. Heck, me and several of my closest friends, along with my job coach, even my goddaughter, find this movie to be absolutely nuts. The movie is about one of Santa Claus's elves, named Buddy, played by Will Ferrell, who learns that he's actually human, and he goes to New York City to meet his biological father while spreading Christmas cheer in a world of cynics. So, what does this movie give us for Christmas? Well, a very ridiculous and cheesy movie literally fueled by Christmas spirit. Seriously, The Swan Princess Christmas and several other Christmas films out there do so much better at spreading Christmas spirit than this. Plus, why would Santa's new sleigh in this movie be powered by Christmas spirit when he already has reindeer to fly it? Also, the main character Buddy, while a crafty genius and full of Christmas joy, is so immature that he takes things a tad too far, like not respecting a woman's privacy, fighting a Santa actor, even going against a midget whom he mistakes to be an elf. Plus, his food groups are a bit bizarre. But the only person in this movie who's likable, other than Bob Newhart as Buddy's adopted father and narrator for the movie, is Hovey, played by Zooey Deschanel. I mean, this girl has such talent when it comes to singing that she saves Christmas by having everybody in New York sing with her. However, I just can't believe that Elf became a Broadway musical in 2010. But what's even more insane is that in 2014, NBC made a stop-motion musical remake, which is way more infuriating. Elf, a movie that deserves to be on Santa's naughty list. Alright guys, here's where I talk about the Disney sequels. Now, over the course of my show, I blogged many of the sequels made by the House of Mouse. And I've defended many of the ones that several folks out there don't like at times. And I understand that Disney fans' opinions on these movies can vary at times. But for me, there are only 2 Disney sequels that are the absolute worst. Starting with Fox and the Hound 2, I guess you can say that the animation does look good, but that's seriously not saying much. This movie doesn't even feel like it's connected to the original movie in any way. I don't even know what happened during the writing, because this movie has been made into a lame country western musical. And while I do like country music, I find it to be an odd choice for a movie like this. Heck, they even got Reba McEntire, the queen of country, to voice Dixie. And while I do like her and her singing Stray friends, they should have been made for a different movie. And speaking of characters, in this movie, Copper gets fame while joining the Singing Strays, while Tot is stuck doing all the chores. Plus, several of my favorite characters from the first movie, like Big Mama, Dinky, and Boomer, are sadly absent from this movie. Moving on to Belle's Magical World, well, I understand that this movie is supposed to take place after Enchanted Christmas, but unfortunately, this movie feels less like a full-length film and more like a collection of 3 or 4 episodes from a failed TV show. While several other Disney follow-ups like Tarzan and Jane, Cinderella 2 Dreams Come True, and Kronk's New Groove had 3 stories in them, they were treated a lot better due to the sequences between said stories. But here, the stories aren't that interesting, the new characters are one-dimensional, the songs sung by Belle are just bland, and the animation has received a huge downgrade compared to the first Beauty and the Beast. With midquels like these, it's something that Disney should send us an apology for. Has it ever occurred to you guys that you stumble upon a movie that almost makes you think back to your childhood, and then all of a sudden, after watching it, you realize it's the worst thriller you've ever seen? Well, that was clearly my reaction after I saw this movie. For folks who aren't familiar with this nightmare of a movie, it's about a 9-year-old Manhattan boy who has the same name as mine, played by Jacob Kogan, who tears his family apart by his disturbed and sadistic behavior. The reason why this movie is on the list is because, well, it reminds me of me, in a way. You see, when I was Joshua's age, I got into all kinds of trouble, but not on the same level as this kid. I mean, throughout the movie, while Joshua is a great piano player, he's been driving his parents apart, killing several pets, tearing apart stuffed animals, had his grandmother fall down museum stairs, making disturbing paintings, and of course, torturing his baby sister. So, in other words, Joshua is doing all this chaos out of jealousy. Also, this movie is full of religious crap, and I can't believe that Joshua would make his mom go into a nervous breakdown or have her step on glass. And at the end of the movie, Joshua has his dad thrown in jail for child abuse and assault, and he frames him for tampering with his mother's medication. Joshua, a thriller that really gives me a bad name. Out of the 3 adult cartoons that have pretty much overstayed their welcome, South Park has got to be the most insane show in existence. Yeah, I admit it, I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to adult cartoons, due to them being a bad influence for families. But talking about the show is for another time. We're talking about the movie here. Now, I understand that folks have given this film a lot of praise since its 1999 theatrical release. But the reason why I don't like this movie is not just because of the crude stick figure animation that looks like they were done by first graders. Nope. And it's not because the songs are dirty parodies, even though La Resistance is the best in my opinion. Nope. The story, in my opinion, is absolutely nuts. You see, the film follows Stan, Kyle, Eric, and Kenny, who sneak into an R-rated movie featuring their favorite Canadian actors, Terrence and Philip. And after seeing the movie, they repeat all the cursing that they heard. Next thing you know, their moms start to pressure the U.S. to wage war against Canada for corrupting their children, giving the kids no choice but to unite, fight their own parents, put both America and Canada back into control, and rescue Terrence and Philip themselves, while Kenny tries to stop a prophecy when Satan and Saddam Hussein conquer the world. Now, I understand that parents don't want their kids to watch restricted movies, but do these parents have to be so protective that they have to go into war with another country? I mean, yes, we in the U.S. have had war with other countries like England, Japan, Vietnam, Germany, and just recently, Afghanistan and Iraq. But those countries cause more of a serious threat than a couple Canadian comedians influencing children to curse. Also, while I'm not really into, bisexual behavior, I find the relationship between Satan and Saddam Hussein kind of disturbing. Plus, this movie has some, strange things happening, and there's child abuse, like when one of the kids get implanted with a V-chip, which shocks him every time he swears. Ouch. South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. A raunchy movie that should belong in Satan's collection. As most of you know, ever since 2005, I've been performing with my friends at Musical Theater Village in many classic musicals. And so far, some of my favorites that I've been in are Footloose and Annie. But eventually, during the 2010s, both of these shows got a new film adaptation. And guess what? They both suck. It's actually kind of interesting putting these two together on the list due to them sharing the same problems. For example, they were both modernized just to be more relatable to the children of the new generation. Well, that's partly why, but there's more to them than that. For Footloose 2011, the writing is mostly similar to the 1984 film adaptation, but some parts were changed entirely. Also, they used several hit songs from the original film's soundtrack, which is nice, but unfortunately the movie doesn't let any of the actors sing them, like in the stage version from 1999. And with the exception of Fake ID, most of the new songs aren't that much memorable to me. Those reasons really disappointed me. But, on the other hand, the acting is pretty good, including Julian Hough as Ariel, and Dennis Quaid as Reverend Moore. Moving on to Annie 2014, I guess you can say that the good part is that some of the soundtrack is alright, due to some of them staying true to the stage version, as well as the 1982 and 1999 versions, but some of the other songs are butchered or replaced by a song that shouldn't even be in this movie. Heck, even Miss Hannigan's song, Little Girls, gives me a huge headache. Plus, the pop culture references shouldn't even be in this. On top of that, the film screws up the portrayal of many of the characters from the show. Not only did they change Annie from this to this, but they also changed Oliver Warbucks to Will Stacks, and Rooster and Lily are portrayed by two random people who are hired by Bobby Cannavale. Seriously, the people who made this movie should never go the easy street in order to make a quick buck on this. With films like these, I should rather stick to their stage versions or their original films. Now, if there's one thing that Hollywood loves to adapt, but rarely gets it right, it's cartoons. And I don't mean animated films based on an animated TV series. Oh no. I mean films that are in live action. Most folks have pointed out that films like Bratz the Movie, The Last Airbender, or the Chipmunk quadrilogy are absolutely atrocious. But to me, the absolute worst film based on a cartoon is this. Now, folks have been saying that Jem's show has had some ups and downs at times, though it was very entertaining and it was so wonderfully 80s. And the show had a sweet, happy ending when Bonnie found her long-lost father. But after seeing the live-action movie from 2015, I never thought that it would screw up so badly. For starters, even though the movie's soundtrack is, well, okay, this movie doesn't even feel like the original cartoon, due to it being set in modern day, which was, like Annie and Footloose, trying to be more relatable to the young ones. But still, changing the setting from the 80s to modern day takes away the feeling of what Jem was about. Plus, not only does the majority of the movie take us on a lame scavenger hunt, but it screws up the portrayal of the show's characters. For example, Jerrica and her sisters aren't like the foster parents that they were in the show. They've been turned into just, well, plain teenage songwriters living with their aunts and making homemade music videos. Eric Raymond has been turned into a woman named Erica who takes advantage of Jerrica and her sister's relationship and confiscates her earrings. Rio is still Jerrica's love interest, but in the show, he was never Erica's son, nor did he know that Jem was Jerrica all along. Plus, the bratty misfits don't even appear in the movie until the very end. And then you have cases like Synergy, where they screwed it up so badly. I mean, they made Synergy from a supercomputer that projects a female hologram avatar to a little BB-8 ripoff. But what's even worse is that the movie takes advantage of the people who love the 80s TV series and uses their video footage to make them look like fans of the Jerrica from this movie. Sheesh. No wonder this movie got pulled from theaters. Jem and the Holograms. A movie that is badly contagious and outrageous. Truly, truly, truly outrageous. You know, while I do love my family, I think they have a real habit of dragging me to see movies that I knew were bad, like Borat, Snatched, Spy, and several others. But I can't believe that my mom and sister would actually drag me to see this movie. So, why do I hate this film? Well, let's talk about the plot. The film is about a small-time pot dealer named David Clark, played by Jason Sudeikis, who convinces his neighbors, a stripper named Rose, played by Jennifer Aniston, a teenage runaway and petty thief named Casey, played by Emma Roberts, and a socially awkward 18-year-old boy named Kenny, played by Will Poulter, to help him by pretending to be his family in order to smuggle marijuana from Mexico into the U.S. Now that is very despicable, especially since this smuggling job was assigned by a wacko drug lord named Brad, played by Ed Helms. Aside from the smuggling, another reason why I didn't like this movie is because, in my opinion, the comedy wasn't really that funny at all. It was more, well, I hate to be so repetitive, but it was really cringeworthy and disgusting. And very raunchy. Especially the scene where Kenny is bitten in the testicle by a Mexican red-knee tarantula. Yeesh. As well as some innuendo, like exotic dancing by Rose. Plus, this movie has an annoying kid named Scotty who tries to sexually harass Casey. Sheesh. And with all that said, my parents should learn to respect my taste in certain movies. We're the Millers, a film that makes National Lampoon's Vacation look better. During my high school age, I've been hearing all sorts of gossip from my peers that the world would end in 2012, just because the Mayans stopped making their calendars. And I thought that was absolute bullshark. But in 2009, not long after I left high school and moved on to college, we get this mess. While I didn't really see this movie in theaters, thank God, I was deeply scared after seeing the trailer, and after renting it from Netflix, I absolutely knew this movie would suck big time. Surprising that this film is directed by the guy who gave us Independence Day and The Day After Tomorrow. Plus, the reason why 2012 is so high on the list is because of how the movie is nowadays. You see, when it was released in 2009, it did give an okay imagining of what would happen if the world did end on December 21st, 2012. But nowadays, since we made it through 2012 without any of this stuff even happening, this movie is more bullshark than I already knew it would be. Also, the plot is absolutely ridiculous due to several scenes not having anything to do with the main plot, and many story cliches. The characters, aside from Jackson Curtis, Adrian Hemsley, and Yuri Karpov, have little to no personalities, and they are either over or underacted. The special effects during the destruction scenes are way over the top, including the destruction of California, my home state. Also, the President of the United States, played by Danny Glover, is such a spineless coward that he makes Barack Obama look better. And I think it's not fair that the folks building the arks in order to save humanity are letting billionaires on board. And only billionaires. I mean, seriously, I believe everybody, whether rich or poor, has a right to live. But the most insane part in this movie is that the government states that anyone who ever attempted to inform the public about what was going to happen would become an enemy to mankind and be sentenced to death. Yeesh. Also, while Charlie Frost was a tad irritating in this, I did enjoy that animated video that he made. 2012, the most destructive movie in the history of mankind. Now, before we move on to the number one spot, let's talk about the dishonorable mentions. Like my top 13 bad films that I like, I will be showing a few films that I don't like for this spot, but I decided to do something a little different. Instead of showing and explaining a little bit about each one, I'll present them in a little slideshow. So, take it away, computer! Well, that's all there is to it. So, if you folks have any questions to why I don't like these films, just feel free to ask in the comment section below. So now we come to the number 1 spot. Now, you're probably wondering which one it is. Well, it may be a little surprising to most of you. Yes, ever since this movie came out, I knew for the moment that it would infuriate me. Due to my deep hatred for Angry Birds, ever since 2012, when my previous computer caught a huge virus and Angry Bird pop-ups and ads were everywhere. But back onto the main subject. The movie is about a bird named Red, who is not only ridiculed for having large eyebrows, but he has a big anger issue, and he's sentenced to anger management classes where he meets Chuck, who is hyperactive and can move at a very high speed of light, and Bomb, who can cause explosions with his anger and fear. Later, a boat arrives at the island carrying green-colored pigs and their captain, Leonard, aka King Mudbeard, who claim to be peaceful explorers bringing offerings of friendship. But in reality, these disgusting porks are after the bird's eggs so that they can cook and eat them. Not only is this film so cliched, but it's really mean-spirited, and the humor can be very annoying and disgusting, especially when we see the mighty eagle, who is actually a slacker, and he urinates in his own pool. Plus, the other birds are so idiotic that when Red is trying to warn them about what the pigs are up to, they don't even believe him. Not even the ending climax is entertaining to me, due to the fact that I don't care that much about phone apps. With all is said and done, the Angry Birds movie is the number 1 film that I hate the most. I mean, it's not like they would ever make a sequel to this movie, would they? Ah! No! But, thankfully, according to my rules, I can never blog sequels to films that I hate. Anyway, that's all I got for the top 13 films that I hate. Now, I hope you guys understand why these films got on my nerves. But like I said, we all have our own tastes in different kind of movies. Anyway, be sure to tune in for my next blog, which will hopefully put me in a better mood by then. Mustang Power.